Before we get to that town, however, I wanted to do a small segment called Bakerteam, where I just wanted to address some of the great personalities and forces behind the move that made this movie such a memorable one. The culmination of the group, you know, the team effort involved, and some brilliant people made this movie happen and made this movie what it is. And First Blood would not have been the success it was, in my opinion, if anybody else had handled it. There's like such a long list, and I could go on forever giving credit to everybody. But for now, I'll just name a few, since we don't have a lot of time. I've been really raked and scratched for time this week, and I apologize. Actually, last week too, and next week. But I'm gonna try to plow through it as fast as I can, like those plows outside are plowing through the snow. So, the movie was produced by Buzz Feitshans, Herb Nanas, Andrew Vanya, and Mario Kassar. The music for the movie was handled by Jerry Goldsmith, and we'll be talking about him soon, like a little in a few episodes, and a lot more in the future of the series. Dan Hill, brilliant Dan Hill, another great Canadian, was also thrown into that mix. Joan E. Chapman handled the editing for the film. She did a really great job, especially considering, you know, they had to edit out a lot of it, which we will be talking about that too in the future. There's some brilliant cinematography by Andy Laszlo, and there's so many cool stories about him on the Drawing First Blood documentary. You know, that whole mine scene, how he lit it up with 2 matchsticks, and they filmed the whole thing with 2 matchsticks lighting the whole place. Andy Laszlo, brilliant cinematographer. Ted Kotcheff directed this movie, and I love how passionate he is about this. It's really a labor of love for him, as you could tell. Like, you know, through the long spans of time, he was really attached to the project. It was really a labor of love. Watching him in the documentary as well was beautiful to see him and his connections to everybody on that set and the whole filming process. When you watch him in the documentary, you can really tell that he loves this movie and that this movie was directed from his heart. So, Ted Kotcheff, A1 man, you did an awesome job. And, you know, you impacted the future of cinema. So, you know, great. I love it. There's some awesome practical effects by Tom Fisher, John Thomas, and George Erschbaumer. And we'll be getting into one of those crazy little effects they did, the arm sewing scene, a little later on in the show. Really great practical there, like brilliant practical. Their effects work on this movie stands the test of time. You know, some of the most brilliant special effects I've seen. Some like brilliant practical effects that still look better than the shitty CGI that's done today. The great buddy Joe Hooker also worked stunts on this movie, and he's just a legend in Hollywood. You know, I believe he worked on like Indiana Jones, that whole like where Indy goes under the truck in Raiders of the Lost Ark and he comes out the other end and climbs up, and this guy is just wow. Like wow. The stunts in this movie are great. Stallone also did some stunts in this movie that resulted in him having to go to the hospital a few times over the span of the filming process. But you know, it just wouldn't be the same without the great Buddy Joe Hooker. Amazing. Amazing, amazing, amazing. Check out IMDb and Wikipedia for the cast and crew, because there's so many great names here, and I can't mention them all because we don't have a lot of time. Yeah, because there's a lot of work to be done today. But, yeah. So if I leave anybody out, go check them out there on those two sites. There's some just really awe-inspiring, and, you know, there's just some really great names attached to this movie. Jimmy Lyle designed a knife that would once again make history, that amazing aviator Rambo knife. I think I overheard Mario Casar say in the documentary that the cost of the film was $18 million. And once again, there's a great story about that as well in the documentary. So to get into some of the brilliant and inspirational casting for this film, for this movie, it was cast really, really, really well. And I didn't seem to have a problem with anyone's acting. I thought, for the most part, that most of the acting was spot on. So, we should quickly address that before we move on. Mr. Sylvester Michael Gardenzio Stallone would appear in the lead as Mr. John J. Rambo himself. Hopefully we'll figure out what the John J stands for, or what the J initial will stand it for in the future. But Sylvester Stallone, awesome as Rambo. If they ever remake this movie, then they have some big shoes to fill on that one. Because, you know, Sly's ability to act to the camera, you know, is so amazing. And he brings such a presence. And he doesn't even have to talk. It's just that you could just read him so well. You know, awesome, brilliant casting choice on that one. And I remember hearing that Sly said that he was going to turn it down. I'm so glad that he didn't. You know, even though he had to go to the hospital a couple of times, he got pretty hurt on this movie, as well as, I believe, all the other Rambo films. But that's connection. You know, that we could really feel that on the screen, and it makes for great movies. And I love how Sly goes for it all and gives it all, because he knows 10 years in the future he's going to look back at it and he's going to say, I could have done that better, and he did. So kudos, Mr. Stallone. Well played indeed. Richard Crenna, brilliant here as Troutman. Brian Dennehy, brilliant here as Teasel. Bill McKinney from Deliverance, Squeal Squeal, comes in as Kern. He's awesome in this movie. I loved him. Jack Starrett as Galt, really menacing, really forceful, a force of nature. He was scary. I loved his character, and I loved how he got his comeuppance. Michael Talbot here as Balford. Chris Mulkey here as Ward. John McLean here as Orville. Brilliant acting there. Because his babies can eat and run at the same time. Alf Humphreys here as Lester. Really great. David E. Crowley as Shingleton. Don McKay comes in as Preston. Charles A. Tumbro as himself, the Huey pilot. He flew that awesome helicopter that got the rock in the windshield. Stephen Chang plays the really chilling VC commander. He scared the shit out of me when I was a kid, and he's just awesome. His presence in that scene, though very brief, is so amazing. I wonder if there's some B-roll of him from the film. I know there is one in a documentary we will be talking about in a little bit, but he's great in this movie. There's a young David Caruso, possibly in his debut performance as Mitch, and I love him. You know, the gap between First Blood and seeing him in NYPD Blue and CSI later on, through that gap of time, I've always looked at him as such a brilliant actor, even though I didn't see him for so long. You know, between First Blood his other works of art. But he just really sold it as Mitch, and he made me kind of want to be afraid of Teasel and you know, of what they were up against in the woods. And he really brings it here. He really brings it. Unfortunately, that's all the time I have for this episode. But in the next episode, we're going to get back to that little town. That little Hope town. And what a brilliant town it is. So stay tuned next for our little thing on the town of Hope, Washington itself. The fabled town of Hope, Washington itself. So thanks for watching, and stay tuned.